All right, welcome to Ducks and Pucks. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co host, Eddie Jones. We have a special show for you today. We're going to be doing our podcast. It's going to be a playoff edition. We're going to go over some of the other series that are going on around the league and discuss them briefly. Eddie and I will give you our picks and analysis of those matchups. And then, of course, we'll go into depth with our matchup against the Winnipeg Jets coming up here. The Ducks got the first seed as well, clinched it against Arizona, Eddie. And it was a good start. At least we wanted to win going into the playoffs. So it was good to see the Ducks get that win over the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, it was a a 2-win win against one of the worst teams in the league, but it was all in all a pretty strong game. Outshot them heavily. They got a good performance from Mike Smith, which is something they haven't seen all season. And no, I think it was a nice win. So everybody played pretty well. Nobody, Anderson had a strong game, and he's going to need that going to the playoffs. A big confidence booster, especially for the team after that, that big disappointing 4-0 loss to the Dallas Stars. So I think it's a good win and a big confidence booster for the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about. We needed to get that win. We had put up the playoff scenarios just a couple days before that because obviously St. Louis was playing early in the morning. They ended up winning in regulation, so the Ducks had to win in regulation because of the tiebreaker, which we had discussed before, is the ROW or is the regulation and overtime wins. That's what the league uses when two teams have the same amount of points at the end of the season, at least for the first tiebreaker. So the Ducks earned that and got the first seed. We're going to cover the whole series here with them and the Jets in a minute, but we're going to take a second here and just look at some of the other matchups around the league. We'll start with the East. Um, First up, we've got Montreal and Ottawa. Eddie, this one's going to be, I think a tight series. You got Price against Hammond. You know a little bit more about the Eastern teams with where you're at. What's your take on this series?
Yeah, I think the media is playing up Ottawa's run to the playoffs as they're a stronger team than they really are. Obviously it was a extraordinary run. I believe they're 14 points out in February, and they won 21 of their last 27 games to get into the playoffs. But I don't. That doesn't mean they're still a good team. Hammond has the best record in the final quarter of the season. He's got a 1.79 goals against average, .941 save percentage, and he had a record of 20 wins, one loss, and two overtime shootout losses. So that's obviously a great record. He's the main reason they're in the playoffs. But no, a lot of people are saying the same thing about Minnesota with Dubnyk is really can Hammond continue into the playoffs and carry them through, and I don't see it happening. It's his first playoff experience with a team that's relatively young and first playoff experience for many of them, and you're going against a guy like Carey Price. He's got to go head to head against Carey Price, and you look at Ottawa too, being 3-1-0 against the Montreal Canadiens this season, and it's gonna be a hard one. It's gonna be a tough one. There's a lot of key guys that Montreal is gonna have to get scoring some goals. Pacioretty and Plekanec and Galchenyuk, Gallagher. Those guys are gonna have to get scoring for them if they want to win. And Ottawa's got the same thing. Bobby Ryan, obviously remember him when he used to play for the Ducks, and Mark Stone, who's been really good for them this season. Kyle Turris, Hoffman. Those are gonna be guys who have to get going for them. And obviously on the blue line, the big battle between Subban and Carlson is gonna be big. And I think if you look at it, though, you come down to the key players for each team are going to be the goalies, and it's going to be if Hammer can continue what he's doing, and obviously Price is, so we're pretty sure he's going to continue playing the way he's played all season. It's going to really come down to who can score more goals, and I think it's going to be a closer series than people think, but I think Montreal is going to come out with a win in either 6 or 7.
Yeah, I agree with you, Eddie. I think this series will come down to 6 or 7 games, and I think the goalie situation is going to be key. Like you said, Hammond coming in, obviously playing well down the stretch. All the media attention and all the stuff about the hamburgers and all this stuff, and there's a lot of hype around Ottawa, and a lot of people are big on Ottawa, especially the media up where you're at, from what you've told me, is big on them in this Canadian series, basically. But I think Montreal was so close last year. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals and lost to New York, even not at 100%. With the team that they had last year. So I think that they're going to take out Ottawa, and I agree with you. I think it's going to be 6 or 7 games. So that's what you and I agree on this one. And we'll see what happens, but that's how it looks. The next matchup we have is Tampa Bay and Detroit. In this one, I'm leaning more towards Tampa Bay. Eddy, Detroit's got some serious injuries with Cole and Abdelkader out. You know, Abdelkader's our favorite player in Detroit. For all of you that remember from 2 years ago in the playoffs when we played them. But I'm going with Tampa Bay in this one. I think they're going to take out Detroit, Eddy.
Yeah, and it's hard to go against one of the top scoring teams in the league, and against a team who've lately had some goaltending issues with Jimmy Howard coming back and not being as strong as he was, and Mrazek either playing really really good or really really bad. It's hard to go against a team like this, and a team that scores so many goals, especially if they get a lead. They're not going to relinquish it, and if your goaltenders aren't firing on all cylinders, it's going to be hard for them. And I think it's going to be a relatively easy series for the Tampa Bay. It's hard to bet against the Red Wings, but I think Tampa Bay is just too strong this year. They got one of the best lines in the league in Johnson, Kucherov, and Palat, and obviously one of the best players as well in Steven Stamkos. And I think Victor Hedman coming back and being healthy, and Callahan playing good too, and Ben Bishop playing strong. I think they're just going to be too much. I think they scored too many goals, and they've got a very good goaltender and good on defense. I think they're just going to be too much for the Red Wings, and I think the key for the Red Wings again is the key always really comes down to goaltending for them. But I think they got to find a goalie and get them hot. It's gonna have to be Mrazek, or it's gonna have to be Howard to get to to really pull them through the series. But I've got Tampa Bay winning in probably five. But if Datsuk and Zetterberg can steal a couple games, maybe six.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Datsuk and Zetterberg are really going to have to pick up the slack. I mean, if Howard's able to slow down Tampa Bay on the scoring, then maybe they do have a chance. But I think you're right. I think it's going to be too much for those two to really go against Tampa Bay and pull it out. I believe the same as you. I think Tampa Bay wins this one in 5 or 6. So we agree on the first two here, and then the next series we got is the Rangers against another injury-ridden team. The Pittsburgh Penguins with Letang out for the season. This is really going to be a tough one for Pittsburgh, Eddy. As some of you know, I actually do like the Penguins, but as a team, but I think that they may get knocked out. I don't want to say 4 games and be too overconfident, but I think Pittsburgh's going to go down. They really struggled down the stretch. Didn't really show me much of anything going into the series, and New York's speed, and we saw that in the game against the Ducks. I really think New York's going to take it to Pittsburgh in this series, Eddy.
Yeah, it's hard to bet against the Rangers, especially with the Penguins having only Martin Lovejoy and Scuderi as regulars on defense, and then you've got Ian Cole and Taylor Chorney as the other five, and only playing with five defensemen. Craig Adams is actually playing as their sixth defenseman right now, and it's tough for them. They're coming against one of the hottest teams in the league, one of the best teams in the league, and like you mentioned, especially when we played them, one of the fastest teams in the league too. And you got guys like Rick Nash playing well, and Marty St. Louis hopefully going to be back. Derek Stepan, Brassard, and pick your poison with Lundqvist and Talbot and net, and picking up Yandel and McDonough on defense. I think there's just too much to deal with, and there's too many injuries to deal with specifically for the Penguins. Obviously even having Dupuis out on forward is going to be a problem for them, and Sidney Crosby and Malkin being some of the best players in the league. I think to rely on them for the whole series is going to be too much. And we've seen Fleury struggles in the last few seasons, and the only way they get through here is if they're going to have to fight through these games, and Malkin, Crosby, and Fleury are going to have to be outstanding. But I think the Rangers just have too much, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a sweep here. Maybe 5 or 6 if the Penguins can put up a fight.
Yeah, I completely agree, Eddy. That's another one that's it's going to be a tough uphill battle for the Penguins against that Ranger team that's just been on a roll. And for those of you that don't know, they did win the President's Trophy as well, which we've talked about it, and we don't really worry about it too much as far as the Ducks earning it or not. But it just shows you how they've been strong down the stretch, and it's going to be a tough go for Pittsburgh. The other Eastern matchup that we have, and this one's kind of more up in the air. Eddy and I have kind of gone back and forth on this one, is Washington against the Islanders. This one's kind of a tough one. Islanders have really done well. Kind of slowed up a little bit throughout the season. We've kind of gone back and forth on this one, and I think Eddie and I agree that it's going to go far. But I think the Islanders might be able to pull this one out. But if they do, it's going to be in 7 games. I know Eddie, you kind of have a little different take. What do you think with Washington?
Yeah, I know. I think, like you said, it's going to be a close series. You look at offense, both teams are pretty much the same. You got Ovechkin, Tavares, Backstrom, and Okposo, and then some good depth guys throughout the lineup for both teams. And you look on defense, the Islanders been a lot better this year defensively, adding Boychuk and Leddy. If Hamannik comes back, that's going to be a big key for them. They're going to need him if they're going to go far. And adding Niskanen and Orpik for the Capitals has been a big thing for them, and Mike Green obviously being back there as well. And then you look in goal, and they're pretty much in the same situation. Holtby's have been outstanding for them this year, and Halak's been great for the Islanders. So they're pretty much identical teams. I think they're equal in all their positions. I just think I think the goal scoring and the special teams that the Washington Capitals have, and just I think Holtby is going to be hotter coming into the playoffs, and I like the coaching of Barry Trotz behind the bench for Washington, and how he's made this team better defensively. That was the big issue they've had for so many seasons. We talked about Ovechkin and Backstrom being so good, but this team not being able to get back and play defensively. We all know that video of Ovi coming back on the back check, just kind of lackluster skating, and they get a goal. So I think that's been the big change for them this season. But like you said, it's going to be a tight series. 6 or 7 games. Pretty much it's going to go to seven, and the game changers are going to be Tavares and Ovechkin, and the goaltenders, the big hitters. If they can get going, they're going to be some high scoring games, and it's going to go probably a couple games in OT as well.
Yeah, I think this series, probably out of all the series, including the West, is probably going to be one of the most entertaining, Eddie. Like you said, I think it's going to be, high scoring. Of course, you've got Ovechkin in there, who's always entertaining and taking it to the net and getting goals, along with Backstrom helping him out, as you said, and Tavares as well. I mean, it may be one of those, run and gun, up and down type games. I mean, this series would probably be extremely entertaining to watch. And I don't think any of these games are going to be boring. That's for sure, Eddie.
No, no, you're right. And the Capitals, if you look at the season series too, they won 2 of 4 games, and with 2 of them going into overtime, and I believe they were most of them being close games except for one. It's gonna be an interesting thing. Tavares almost winning the Art Ross, and obviously Ovechkin winning the Maurice Richard Trophy. It's gonna be two heavy hitters going against each other.
So now we shift gears, go back to the Western Conference, and we'll start off with St. Louis and Minnesota. The big story in this one, Eddie, is due. And the role that Minnesota has taken down the stretch. This series is kind of almost like a mirror of the Montreal Ottawa series, if you will, because a lot of experts are picking Minnesota to do well in this one if they can ride the back of Dubnyk in this.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, it's like the Montreal series, and other than the fact that the Blues also have a goalie situation on their hands too. If it looks like Elliott's going to start, and we obviously know Dubnyk's going to start for them, and both teams are pretty strong. They've got some guys rolling for them, and Parise and Vanek for the Wild, and Tarasenko, Schwartz, and Backus, and some other guys for the Blues as well. And the blue lines are pretty good too. Pietrangelo, Shattenkirk for the Blues, and Suter for the Wild. So I think it comes down to goaltending, and I just as much as I like the story that Devin Dubnyk has, and going 28, 9-3 since he made his debut in Minnesota, I just don't see them doing. He started so many games in a row for the Wild, and the Blues being able to rotate goalies, Jake Allen and Brian Elliott where necessary. And I just think the Blues are just built as a better team. I think, adding the scoring they've had with Tarasenko making a step up this season, and Jaden Schwartz, and they're kind of built in a similar way to the Blackhawks. And I think, if Brian Elliott can have a good playoffs, they're poised for a long run. And Minnesota could scrape this out too. I think it all comes down to Devin Dubnyk though, because you look how they played before he joined the team, and they were struggling, and a lot of people didn't think they were going to make the playoffs. So it's going to be a tight series, and I think it really all comes down to the play of Devin Dubnyk to decide who's going to win this series.
I agree with you, Eddie. I think the offense, especially on the Blues, has been so much better this season. With Tarasenko has been tearing it up. We've had the guys on from the Blues podcast. We've talked to them as well with the offense, and they're really impressed with this guy as well as you said, Schwartz. Backus, Oshie. There's just a lot of offensive weapons there for St. Louis. So I think Minnesota's going to definitely put up a fight. I don't think it's going to be an easy series, but I still have the Blues winning this one in 6 or 7, Eddie.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, it's going to be a tight series, and it all comes down to timely goals and timely saves. And you look at what team has the more game changers, and I think it comes down to St. Louis for sure.
And then we move to the next series, which is kind of interesting. We've got Nashville and Chicago, and originally I had picked Nashville to win this series, but we got news today that Patrick Kane is skating in practice. So we don't know for sure, but there's a good chance that Kane may be playing in round one and not in round 2 or 3 like originally projected. And if Kane comes back along with the addition of Vermette and all the other weapons that Chicago has, coupled with the Predators not doing as well, because you remember they were the Ducks rival for a while there for the first seed, and then they kind of faltered, and St. Louis took over that spot in their division. Um, if Kane comes back and he's healthy, I think Chicago is really going to take it to Nashville. I don't think they're going to beat them in 4 or 5 games, but I think they're going to beat them, Eddie.
Yeah, and both teams have struggled coming to the playoffs. Nashville's lost three in a row, and Chicago's lost four going in. But I think Nashville's just slumped off since the beginning. Forsberg hasn't been able to score as much. That line hasn't been able to get going. Rene's been okay, but their away form really is scary for them. They're only 19, 16, and 6 on the road, while being 28, 9, and 4 at home. And their home record really saved them and helped them get to the record that they're at. But I think Kane skating and not just skating at practice, skating with a no with a full contact jersey on, so he's able to take contact and take hits. I think is big for the Blackhawks. Having being able to have him close to being back, he's taking slap shots. He's been able to move a little bit better, and I think if he gets back, that's a huge thing. I still had Chicago before he came back. I thought even if they go down, they're gonna rush him back, and he's an elite player, so he's going to still play well either way. But if he's completely healthy, you should watch out for the Blackhawks, especially if Nashville can't get scoring. Crawford has been, I've criticized him before, but he's proven that he's a capable goaltender. He's a good goaltender, and Rene obviously was one of the best this season. But I think if Kane can come back, the Blackhawks are going to be scary, and we might be seeing them in the Western Conference Final if we can make it that far.
Yeah, I agree with you. It really, if Kane comes back, there's so much more pressure now on the Predators' blue line and on Pecorini to stop them. It's going to be tough. I think Chicago would probably take them out in 6 games. But things we'll see. We'll see. We'll get more updates. We'll obviously have a podcast next week too, in the middle of the Duck Jet series, and we'll talk about what's going on and update everybody as well with all that information. So we'll see. But as of now, if Kane's in, that's what we're going with. The other matchup, this one is kind of a similar one to the Capitals Islanders. It's Vancouver against the Calgary Flames, another one that could be high scoring, Eddie. And it's also another one that you and I kind of have a different opinion on. I kind of lean towards Calgary, the way that Hiller's played down the stretch and the offensive production that the Flames have had. Even though obviously Giordano being injured, that's going to hamper Calgary a little bit in this one. But again, this is a one just like the Islanders in Washington that this could go 6 or 7 games too, Eddie.
Oh yeah, and I think nobody would be surprised if it does. I think we'd be more surprised if it only goes five or somebody gets a sweep. But well, the Flames obviously making that big push and grabbing the playoff spot, beating the Kings was big for them. And they'd won three going in until losing to Winnipeg on the last day, and Vancouver's coming in and they've won three in a row. And then they look to be hot going to the playoffs. I just think you got to give the slight edge to the Vancouver Canucks. They've got experienced guys coming in for Bada and the Sedin brothers, Bieksa, Miller being in the playoffs before, and even if Lack starts, Miller's still there, and you've got those two guys, and I think Ramos still hurt, so Hiller's gonna be off the guy for the Flames, and they're still without their captain, no Giordano, and And this, another thing too is the Vancouver Canucks. The power play is pretty similar for both teams, but the penalty kill for the Canucks has just been amazing this season. And if you look at the Flames penalty kill in comparison, it's not too great. And if they take too many penalties and they allow the Canucks on the power play, they're going to score goals. And I think it's just too much for the Flames. They'll be able to fight, and Hiller will steal them some games. I just think the experience and just the way that the Canucks can play in the special teams, it's going to be a tight series, but I think they're going to pull it out in 6 or 7.
Yeah, and these could be again more up and down, north and south type games, high scoring as well. So this is another series that'll be entertaining to watch for sure. But the most entertaining series, of course, is going to be our series. For all of you out there that we want to see the Ducks take down the Jets. Um, According to most of the media out there, looks like we're the underdogs or the underducks, as came up with that hashtag yesterday, Eddie. Looks like most people are picking the Jets in 6 or 7. What is your take on that?
Yeah, like I've seen a lot coming up from the media, especially here in Canada, in the last few days that a lot of people are picking the Jets to bump off the Ducks, citing our apparent goalie issues and not being able to choose between Anderson and Gibson. And I don't see it. I get it. The Jets are a good team, and they did only get to the playoffs because Calgary beat the Kings. So you have to remember that too. They were fighting to get in the playoffs, but they benefited from some other teams as well. And Matthew Pro is still hurt. Not sure if he's going to play in Game 1, but they're a strong team. They're pretty much even with us in many categories as well. So. But I think it comes down to them is they have just as many goalie issues as apparently we do as well. Pavlik is, yeah, he's been playing good going to the stretch. He's going to get the start, but there's we've seen it from Pavlik before. He can be really hot for a while, and then right he'll just turn it off, and he won't be able to turn it back on again. And then they've got to go to a guy like Hutchinson, and I don't think there's any issue in goaltending for us if they were saying this last year with Hiller and Anderson too, and having Gibson there as well as who we're going to choose. But it's hard to have an issue when you can choose between two goaltenders with the quality of Anderson and Gibson. I think it's a good decision to have two great goaltenders, not to choose between them. Obviously, we want one guy to start and take us to the playoffs, and we're pretty sure it's going to be Anderson now with Gibson going down with a minor injury. But I don't see it in how the Jets have a huge advantage over the Ducks. I think we've built our team, too well down the middle with Getzlaf and Kessler, and then having guys like Perry and Silverberg, Cogliano, Sekach, Raquel, guys to fill out the rest of the roster. I think we have too much depth, and it really should be an easy series. I have the Ducks in 5, and I'm not trying to sound too confident, but I just don't think the Jets can do it.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll break this down for everybody too on each area. But just to recap, we played the Jets this year 3 times, beat them all 3 times. One time in regulation, one time in overtime, and one time in shootout. So we've been able to get it done. Obviously, some of the games have been close, so I don't think we're going to be blowing them out. Especially the Ducks. We've played in 41 one-goal games, and we've won 33 of those, so that's huge. And we have one of the best winning percentages in the league when going into the third period with a lead. We've only lost a couple games after when that's happened. So going down the categories here, though, if we look at the offense first, and we look at it in terms of goals scored for and against, the Ducks have scored 236 and given up 226. The Jets have scored 230 and given up 210. When you look at it, the big line for the Jets is going to be Ladd, Little, and Wheeler. Those guys all 20 plus scores, and they've done a lot of damage. And they've got other guys. They've got a second line as well that can do some damage. But if you look at the two and you compare them, Eddie, I give the edge to our team, the Ducks, as far as offense, just because for us, I think we have 4 lines that can score, and the Jets, they've got more like 2 lines. So to me, the Jets are going to have to put a lot of pressure on Ladd, Little, and Wheeler, and some of the other supporting guys to get that team going. Because if the secondary scoring doesn't come, the first 2 lines for the Jets are really going to have to produce in this series.
Yeah, and I think a big key for them is losing Matthew Perreault as well. If he can get in that lineup in the first game. They've got obviously Ladd, Little, and Wheeler on the first line. Shifley and Stafford playing well together. Perreault, Frolik, Toulouse, Stempniak. Those 12 guys right, or those 9 guys right there are pretty solid first three lines and could provide them some scoring. But missing Matthew Pro is going to be big for them. And I think, like you said, if you can shut down that first line, that's going to put a lot of pressure on some newbies like Shifley and to produce some scoring for them, and it's going to be tough for them. I think, that's the reason we picked up a guy like Kessler to have a second line almost as strong as our first line. And I think, the star power that we possess and Getzlaf and Perry as well is just going to be too much. I think you have to give the edge to the Ducks with their depth. And it's not maybe not be as a wide a gap as you would think, but I think the edge definitely has to go to the Ducks for this one.
Yeah, and another key too, and we talked about this last year in the playoffs, against Dallas and the Kings, is the faceoffs. And if you look at the Ducks are ranked ninth in the league in faceoffs, 51.6%. Jets are 22nd at 48.9%. So that's going to be another huge key for the Ducks offense. I mean, it's going to affect other areas of the game too, but just in this category that we're talking about, that's going to be huge, Eddie, especially with the addition of Kessler. And we've seen what he's done, especially down the stretch in these last, 10, 15 games of the season.
Yeah, and Thompson too. Hopefully he's not injured for too long. I actually haven't heard too much on his injury and obviously leaving the last game of the season. But he's going to be big, and Getzlaf being able to take less faceoffs has improved his numbers this year. And now that's going to be key for us to win those key faceoffs in the offensive and defensive zone. And I think Perreault is one of their better faceoff guys. So if he's not in, that's going to be a huge advantage for us. And Shifley, obviously being one of the younger players on the team, has ability at the faceoff dot isn't as great as it could be, and Brian Little's not a wonderful faceoff guy either. So I think we definitely got the edge there, and that's going to be important. We talked about it all off season and all throughout the season how the faceoffs are going to be important, and we're going to have to see it in this first series against Winnipeg.
All right, and shifting gears to the defense now. The Ducks give up 2.7 goals a game, and the Jets give up 2.49. So the Jets have a little bit better edge there in the defense. They also have some big guys on the blue line. If you forgot, they had Tyler Myers back at the trade deadline, who's obviously helped out. He's been getting not too many goals, but a lot of assists for them, and they're pretty big on the blue line, Eddie. This is one of the areas that I kind of give the edge to the Jets, just because with the Ducks, some of the issues that they need to figure out is we have enough defensive men, but we got to play the right defensive men. And I think you know where I'm going with this. We need to play the ones that aren't going to turn over the puck in front of the net and cause, bad opportunities for other teams.
All right, yeah, I think everybody knew that you're talking about Stoner there for sure. But you actually might see him draw in the lineup. Obviously, the size of the Jets blue line is going to be a problem for us with Myers being 6'7" and Bufflin being around 6'5", and Stoner and Dupre are pretty big guys, but you could see some of them draw in. I think preferably we'd all like Dupre, and I think we speak for most fans when we say that, and. But yeah, it's going to be an issue. The size of this team is going to be an issue, especially on the blue line. Trouba's a big guy, Myers, Bufflin, and I think we got some things to work out to say we have an advantage on them. It's kind of hard. I think in depth and in the quality of all six of our defensemen, I think we have an advantage. They've got Mark Stewart and Ben Chariot and Tobias Enstrom, kind of rounding out their pairing. And I prefer our six to theirs, but I think the size and just how they've been playing as of late compared to our defense, and obviously, the goals against that we have compared to theirs has been obviously worse. So I think you got to give a slight edge to the Jets, but if we can get our things going together, we've definitely got enough quality to trump them in that category.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes into our next category too, Eddie, is special teams play, because if you look at the special teams play for both teams on the penalty kill, it's very, very similar. The Jets are 81.8% and we're a flat 81%. So the penalty kill is very even. When we get to the power play, the Jets are at 17.8% and the Ducks are at 15.7. With obviously the last month or so, we really kind of went down. Having Sam Vatanen being hurt, being out didn't help. Now that he's back, I think that's part of the key too for the Ducks defense is if we can get Vatanen and Wisniewski really going on the power play, then we could kind of turn some things around and maybe do a little bit better on the special teams. Because if we don't, then again, this is another area that I probably have to give a slight edge. It's not a big difference, but I have to give a slight edge to the Jets on the special teams. Unless we can really get the power play going.
I think though is the problem we haven't had the power play going is because we haven't had as many power plays. We're near the bottom and penalties drawn and having the amount of power plays that opportunities that we need. And then you look at the matchup, and I think this could have been a more perfect matchup to get the power play going because Winnipeg's allowed the most power play opportunities in the league. So I think if that continues in the playoffs, we might see more opportunities on the power play. And we've always said that we've got the quality on the power play. We just need the chances to get it going, get it hot. And I think this is a team that if we can get enough power play opportunities, obviously they allow the most in the league. We can get the guys like Getzlaf and Perry and Kessler and Wisniewski, Vaughton, and those guys going on the power play, and I think it would be good. And I think the only thing we have to worry about is our penalty kill, and obviously we're among the league leaders in time shorthanded, and that's the same with the Jets. And I think we're gonna have to limit that. And it's not like they're great on the power play, but the Jets are still pretty good on the power play, about the same as us. So I think if we can limit our times being shorthanded, but we're going against one of the teams who allows the team who allows the most power play opportunities in the league. So I think we might actually see our power play jump up, and that's going to be a real series changer. It definitely is the special teams.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I mean, that's the one thing that a lot of people, a lot of fans have been harping on is the lack of power plays that the Ducks get, and the lack of basically calls that we get from the refs, and we see it. Everyone else sees it. I can't really explain it, but I mean that's just the way it's been. But you're right, the Jets do give up a lot more power play opportunities, so for them, they're going to have to limit those chances. If we get a lot more opportunities, then I would give the edge back to the Ducks on this. But we got to get those chances, and a big part of that comes from getting down low, getting in the dirty areas, doing what we got to do in front of the net. Putting Maroon and Jackman in front, battling it out, and basically wearing down the other team on the forecheck and making them take silly penalties or tired penalties. Eddie, that's what I think. That's just a big part of the game in general for us going into the playoffs.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you want to say and figure out who's going to win and what it's going to take for them to win. And I think for the Ducks to win, I think they're gonna have to continue playing that forechecking style and just compete physically with the Jets. And a reason why the Jets, and I guess you could say the Ducks as well, have been penalized so many times this season is their high intensity physical style. Has put them in penalty trouble for most of the season. And I think if the Ducks can match or better the Jets in that style, and I think that's going to be key for us as well. And I think it comes down to goaltending for both teams as well. We talked about this, at the beginning of this little review here, and how they've said that the Ducks have an issue to work out. And I think we all know Anderson's probably going to start, and they've got Pavlik going in too, and he's been playing hot. But he's been streaky at times, and if he gets in a couple goals early and his confidence is gone, that could be the series right there in game one. So I think the key for the Jets is going to be Pavlik, and really if he can continue his streak into the playoffs.
Yeah, I completely agree on that, Eddie. And this one, as far as the goalies go, I give the advantage completely to the Ducks. I think Anderson's ready to go. Some of I saw him at practice, and we were joking around. Me and my other buddy David, we were joking around with him with his that mentality. He got back his focus and his mental toughness, and if you've seen the way that he's played in the last couple of weeks, he had a couple losses in there, but most of the way that he's played has been pretty phenomenal down the stretch. The numbers are pretty similar between the two goalies. I mean, Anderson's got 2.38 goals against and a 9.14 save percentage. Pavlik's got a 2.28 and a 9.20 save percentage. So the numbers are pretty even. Anderson, though, obviously he's got more wins. He's got 33 wins. Pavlik's got 22. And Anderson doesn't have a confidence issue at all. I can tell you that right now. He's been back and he's been on it. He's going to be the guy. I mean, you all know I like Gibson too, but obviously with the hand injury, what's happened with him, we heard he should be back and ready for game 1 or 2. Hopefully I'll get some more updates. I'm going to go to practice this week too and see what I can find out. But Anderson's going to be the guy, and I think he's going to be the reason why the Ducks beat the Jets in 5 or 6 games. I really do, Eddie. I think the goaltending of Anderson has just been outstanding, and it's something that the Ducks aren't going to have to worry about at all.
Yeah, and I think something you got to take into account too is literally Pavlik has never played a playoff game in the NHL, and really not any since he played in the AHL. He hasn't played a playoff game since then, and that means Gibson's played more playoff games than Pavlik has, and a goalie with a history of confidence issues like Pavlik, I think it's gonna be. You get a few past him early, and you could derail him, and it's downhill from there for them. And then they've got a rookie in Hutchinson who you got to put in as well. And he's never played a game in the playoffs either in the NHL. So I think that's what it's really going to come down to. And it's not to say that Anderson and Gibson have a lot of experience in NHL playoffs. Obviously, only last year being the first time they played in the playoffs in the NHL, but they look pretty good. And it's not to say the playoffs is a whole new territory for goalies, but I think having playoff experience is big, especially for a goalie with confidence issues. So I think that's going to be a big thing going into this series.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's going to be a difference maker in this one. Obviously the other areas we covered too, but I give the edge to the Ducks. I think we both agree that they'll probably pull this one out in 5 or 6 games. The other key to this that is kind of not really in a category, but it's something you and I have talked about, is if the Ducks get up, 3 games to 1 or 3 games to 2, they gotta nail the Jets down, take them out, Eddie. We can't not win these closeout games. That killer instinct we talked about. So that's the probably the biggest key. If we do get to that, 3-1, 3-2, however we get to that closeout point, try not to go to a game 7 and just take them out, Eddie.
Yeah, and we got to be strong in the MTS Center as well. It's going to be the first playoff game there in a while, and they're going to be rocking. So I think we got to be really, really strong on the road. Obviously, continue to be strong at home, but I think, on the road in an arena like that, it's going to be tough. And, we got to, steal a win or two there and close this out early if we can. And, it's going to be tough. And we saw this in Dallas last year. You get worn out playing 6 games against a physical team, and this is probably one of the most physical teams to play in the playoffs. And I think we got to be careful and not wear ourselves out, and not get injured, and be able to play a solid round 2 as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the other key too is not only winning the series but staying healthy and not getting injured. Like you said, all the craziness that happened with Dallas last year, and Getzloff getting in all these multiple battles with our favorite players on Dallas. So we got to try to avoid all of that, and I mean, obviously there's gonna be some scrums and things that are gonna happen, but you got to let the guys like Jackman and Maroon go into those things. We can't have our stars getting into fights and getting knocked out. Obviously Perry and Getzlaff were ran into multiple times in that series against Dallas. So I think you're right. Let our big guys step up and do what they got to do and stay healthy. And I think that'll be the key. And I'm pretty confident, though. I mean, it's not gonna be an easy series. I don't want anybody thinking that that's what Eddie and I are saying, but I definitely think the Ducks can beat the Jets in 5 or 6, Eddie.
Yeah, and you got to remember too is where the Ducks are still the comeback kings this season. They've set an NHL record and the number of times they've rallied from behind in the third period to win with 18 this season. If they go down, they're gonna fight in the third period and pull it a win, and I think that's gonna be huge for the Ducks in the playoffs as well. So I think that's going to be key for us. And I think the Ducks are just too deep and too good. And 5 games, 6 games should be good enough for the Ducks to win this series.
I completely agree, and we'll just have to watch the first couple games and see how things go. And we'll come back next week and we'll analyze part of the series as we go through and provide updates as well. We also got a contest going on right now. Some of you remember me putting out on Twitter that we had a friend of ours, Devin, that donated a ticket in section 225, the second row from the glass. So the way it's going to work for this contest is I'm just going to have you look up, since it's the playoffs and Stanley Cup, have you look up Lord Stanley's birthday. You can go on Google, just type it in. It'll come up with his birthday. And then email us at DucksNPucks@usa.com, his birthday, the month, the day, and the year. So when you get that and you're hearing this, look it up, email it to us. Everybody get their stuff in by we'll say Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. That way you guys have today, tomorrow, and Wednesday to get it in. And then we'll just pick a random person, and I'm glad that somebody can go to the game. Maybe someone that hasn't gone before and experience it that close. I've never sat that close for a playoff game, so I hope someone else will enjoy the game, obviously, and have a good time. And additionally, we're going to also do a bracket challenge too. You go to NHL.com, create an account if you haven't already, sign on. When you go to make your bracket and you look for the leagues, just type in Ducks and Pucks, all one word, no spaces. Just go in there and join it in. And what we'll do is we'll give away to the winner a couple T-shirts, and I have beanies almost done, so we'll give the winner probably a couple T-shirts and a beanie. Maybe if I find some other stuff, we'll throw some other stuff in there too. But you can look forward to that, and we'll be back next week. And Eddie and I will keep you updated, of course, throughout the week. Thanks for listening.
The Anaheim Ducks are the Stanley Cup champions.